Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on wherever you're joining us from today. It's always good to have you all tune into ATA webinars. The chat function is opened, and we always love to know where we are broadcasting to. I might not be able to call out all the locations. This webinar in particular has attracted over 300 registrants. And so I'm sure we have a global audience joining us today. Hi, Deborah from Salem, Semliki from Joburg, Caroline from New York, Tamlin from Cape Town, Nikki from Cape Town, Robert from Norfolk, Maureen from Atlanta. Amazing. Hi. This is such a global audience. Thank you all for joining us today. I won't dwell on this so much because we have a very interesting topic today, and we might, be taking some time. Hi, Daniela from Austria. Okay. A warm welcome once again to everyone just joining us. Today's webinar is proudly brought to you by Discover Africa Group in partnership with ATA. And we're diving into a hot topic here today. And the topic is traditional SEO dead? How to win a travel search to drive direct bookings. With the search landscape shifting rapidly, thanks to AI overviews, large language model, generated content, and Google's ever-evolving algorithm, the way travelers discover and book trips is changing. And so this topic has become a very important one that we need to have. And that's why we are most especially excited for this one. So in this webinar, we'll be exploring the rise and fall of Google's dominance, the key SEO shifts, what still works in SEO and what doesn't, and AI-powered opportunities travel brands can't afford to ignore. Just our usual housekeeping, the webinar will be recorded and a copy of the recording will be shared with you after the presentation. Also, we'll be having some time for Q&A after the session. And so if you have any question for our panelists today, the Q&A box is just at the bottom of your screen. You can just pop your question in there and we'll have some time to answer all your questions. On the panel today, we actually have three amazing people that are heading this session today. We have Andre Van Kets, the co-founder of Discover Africa Group. Andre combines technical expertise with deep passion for Africa's travel experiences. And since 2022, he's led Discover Africa's web development and digital strategy, launching innovations like the Edge Tracker app and the Google Tracker South Africa project. He brings with him rich insight into the digital transformation of tourism in Africa. We also have Kristen Watts, the founder of Magpie Travel. Kristen is a veteran in the tours and activities space and a leading voice on how AI is impacting travel. With over 20 years of experience and 150 plus distribution partnerships, he brings practical boots on the ground knowledge of content, structure, and discoverability in today's AI-driven search landscape. And lastly, we have Briony Brooks, the head of global PR and strategic comms at Cape Town Tourism. Briony leads Cape Town Tourism's global PR, shaping how one of Africa's top destinations is seen worldwide. Our expertise in brand storytelling and media strategy offers sharp insight into how destination content must evolve to stay visible and engaging in the new search reality. Thank you all for joining us today. And Andre, the floor is yours.
Superb. And thank you so much, Blessing. I'm going to share my presentation to screen and you give me a thumbs up if it's there. Thank you. Yeah, really thrilled to chat about something I'm deeply passionate about and have been working on pretty much for the last 25 years, which is SEO. And in the recent few years, a lot has changed there. I'm by no means a master yet of AI and where it's all going. In fact, I'm the first to admit that I actually stuck my head in the sand for a while. because sometimes when you're so passionate about one thing and you see a threat, we get a bit scared. But I've opened my eyes, and I'm going to talk you through some of the things I've discovered on my journey, and hopefully some of our panelists can jump in at any time. Please, guys, do. All right, so let's jump right in. First things first, where have we come from in search? Let me just make sure that's good. All right, where have we come from? I'm going to start with a quote from one of our modern day poets, Eddie Vedder, where he sings, "Everything has changed. Absolutely nothing's changed." And that's a theme that's going to come through. And at the end, I'll touch back on this. I'll close the loop. But it all starts back here in the early 90s when the search engines pre-Google existed. They were brand new to the world, to the concept of how we find information. And to be honest, they weren't that great. It was when these two handsome young men got together and built the first version of Google back in 1998. It was actually quite a phenomenal and sophisticated leap in technology. Anyone who's interested in it, like, you can read all about it. It was a huge leap from what came before. But the catch was that it was a very technical product. I mean, maybe that sounds obvious, but the way the algorithm worked back then was that if you were a programmer or a developer or a geek like me in the early 2000s, we were able to actually win quite easily in SEO, even if we didn't have a great brand, great content, great storytelling, and all the rest. The geeks kind of, it's like Revenge of the Nerds. We were actually the first to win in this space. But that changed fairly quickly over time. And let's just reflect a little bit on Google first, the platform, not necessarily what we've been doing. This is a story from the year 2000 to 2025 of Google's growth. The two bar graphs, one is, I think, number of searches, and the other one is ad revenue, like into the billions and billions of dollars a year. So you can see how they went from nothing to absolutely massive. In the early 2000s, they had 86% market share of all search volume, which is huge. Only the small fry, the Yahoos, the MSNs, and all the other small search engines carried the rest, but they were basically dominant. Today, believe it or not, Google only holds 18% of search market share. Like, when you think about this slide, like, does that make sense that they've grown so much, yet they're only a tiny sliver of the search pie? How does that equate? Well, in the early 2000s, it was really just them and a handful of hangers-on. But today, search is more than just search engines. It's AI, it's social media platforms. Every time you search on Instagram, you search on YouTube, you search on TikTok, like all these platforms all count as search. And maybe that's the first fundamental I want to share today is it's not just Google, it's not just Bing, it's not just the search engine anymore. The shift is everywhere. And it's not just AI, it's actually all of these platforms together. Today, one of the articles I found says there's about 45 billion searches per day across all these platforms. That's kind of nuts, but let's say there's 1 or 2 or 3 billion web users on the planet. That's only 4 to 5, or 3 or 4 searches per day per person. I mean, all of us in this room today probably have searched on Google or something, maybe 100 times. So these numbers are not inflated. This is the real deal. But when you look at where Google lies on the split of all these platforms, you got the like of Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest, TikTok, ChatGPT is way down here. Even Bing is tiny, not even 1% compared to Google's 13, 14%. Let's just highlight a few of these platforms that matter to us. Firstly, Google, by far the biggest. Instagram, different type of experience. You're not maybe going to click and book your holiday immediately, but it's an influencer. Amazon is like one of the top search platforms. Surely, if you're selling handbags, you're selling shoes, you're selling widgets and products, it's critical. Maybe less so for us, but you never know where Amazon's going to go. Tomorrow, they might open up a travel store. We don't know. YouTube is huge. ChatGPT in its infancy, 1 billion searches a day. This data is probably outdated since I grabbed it. It's probably already 20% up on that. But the point is that there's a lot of variety. And in the top cohort, there's top sort of 20 odd platforms. We don't even include the likes of Booking.com, Airbnb, Viator, TravelStart, all the platforms out there, Google Flights itself. It's just huge. You have to think, I mean, compared to 2000s when I started my online travel business as a computer geek, you just have to consider so much more, and we all need to. All right, so this is quite like a frightening shift in terms of focus and where you need to be. And an awesome, I'm going to share the link of a great video that really opened my eyes to this a couple of months ago, was one by a guy called Neil Patel. And he argued that we're going to need a shift from SEO, meaning search engine optimization, to search everywhere optimization. we'll be sharing the slide deck. I'll share the link with Blessing, and hopefully you can all watch this sort of 5-minute video from Neil. He's a master marketer, but he actually just hits it home so beautifully that I think everyone has to watch that. Apart from the platforms changing significantly over these 10 years, people have changed. I mean, the new generation's first search experience is voice search. My 6-year-old daughter, when we need to find something out or play a song, she just says, "Dad, Siri it." It's a fundamental shift how most of us in this room grew up. And, you know, voice search is going to be a big thing of the future. But now I want to bring us back to travel. And the key question I think here is, can AI deliver traffic, inquiries, and bookings and revenue to our businesses? And I'm going to share a little bit of data from one of our platforms, one of our travel sites, Discover Africa. And this is from Google Analytics over the last 12 months, a graph showing how much traffic we get from AI platforms. It's not significant in numbers, but the growth is steady and akin to what's happening in the general web out there. So we're not sort of safe in travel from this threat of AI or this. In fact, if you treat it as an opportunity, you can dive deep, and you can see that it is happening. If you want to get this data into your analytics, this is a simple little code you can chuck into a search filter. I say that tongue in cheek, but it really isn't that hard to bring this data in, and there's an article that explains exactly how to do that. This is the same time frame for that same site, indicating how we're starting to get inquiries from AI platforms, real customers that are interested in arriving from GPT or LLMs or Perplexity. And here's the first example I have. It's a Safari bookings review from a customer that traveled with us, I think, last year sometime. And she says in the top of her review, Discover Africa is the top company according to AI. I gave up on Google search. I was so confused. And I'm so glad I asked ChatGPT to recommend a company, and then goes on about what a great trip she had and how wonderful our consultant was and all the rest. I'm not trying to brag here. I think the day I saw this review coming through, 39 weeks ago, I was like, wow, this is actually starting to bring revenue in. It's not just this tech thing happening out there. Quick caution, note of caution about AI. It's still getting things very wrong. This is also something I picked up in LinkedIn, PhD professor in machine learning that did this big study on how often AI get things right and when they get things wrong. It's still more wrong than right, but I believe this is changing. The tech is evolving rapidly. One good example is Google partnered with Reddit to get information into their AI engine. And maybe you guys have seen this, but there was one Reddit thread where someone says, how do I get the cheese to stick onto my pizza better? And of course, everyone's giving their advice about the different types of basting you should use and the flour mix. And then one person jokingly writes, "Oh, just put some non-toxic glue on the pizza, and the cheese will stick better." Anyone on Reddit knows that this guy is just making a joke, but Google's AI engine doesn't know that and puts it as a legitimate, how to make your cheese stick to your pizza better. So, the AI is learning humor, it's learning these things, but it's still got a little way to go. And maybe the last word of caution is more about using AI in marketing, in that I think it's very tempting to use AI to churn out blog posts or do a lot of our sort of menial tasks for us. The danger is, though, that it can reduce quality. And in this sort of little diagram, it says how, bad AI content, you're trying to get into the search engine, so you do it quickly, and then you're just feeding, rubbish back into rubbish, creates this virtuous or unvirtuous cycle of bad becoming more bad. So just the little things that I've learned in our last year or so, or year or two of dabbling in AI. All right. One of the most recent changes in Google, which is obviously where a lot of the search starts for the travel industry, is the introduction of AI overviews. Now, that's that little box just below the search bar that gives you an instant answer to something you've searched. It doesn't always appear. It only happens in certain industries and for certain search queries. And this is a bit of data that I found by different industry of how often or what percentage of searches do have the AI overview. Travel and hospitality is relatively low still. On the top end, it's things like health, home and gardening, pets. I mean, I don't know, I find that quite weird. Like, if you need a bit of AI help to tell you if you should be watering your plants or not, that makes sense. Your pet care, okay, but health, are you all relying on AI's overview answers to kind of guide you in your health decisions? Anyway, but the point for the slide is that travel is not unaffected. It is happening about 12, 15% of the time. And I'm pretty sure all these graphs are going to be shifting to the right. A separate study, because I was really curious to find out what happens when the overview does load. because if someone gets their answer from the overview, they don't need to click on my website anymore to get the answer of, when is the best time to visit Kenya to go see the migration. If that answer's in Google, not on my website, I've lost the chance to engage with that customer, to win them over, and hopefully send them on a wonderful safari. According to this study, there's 34% drop in clicks to the first result on Google when there's an AI overview above it. That's pretty frightening. Just let that sink in. That if firstly, you're not number one, you're number two or number five or on page 3. Everyone in organic results is just dropping down and getting fewer clicks because Google's putting their answer up front. So I guess we want to be in that answer, and we will find other channels to activate our brand and get people to find us. So that's kind of like everything of almost where we are today and the things I've learned over the last few months and years. And the key question is, what do we do about the way we've been doing SEO? I'm assuming most people on this panel heard about SEO, are involved in it, have a website that SEO matters. And I guess the answer I wanted to say is that no, SEO is not dead, but it is evolving. That Eddie Vedder quotes, everything's changed, but nothing's changed. And something Chris said to us when we were sort of running through this presentation earlier in the week was, we have to think of AI platforms as a layer that lives on top of existing platforms. And I've got a few points to illustrate that. Bing or ChatGPT, for instance, is owned or largely owned by Microsoft, which is the Bing search engine. And ChatGPT is just a new interface that allows you to access what Bing has learned and what Bing knows and has in its data set. Perplexity, another big AI platform or established AI platform. Chris, can you remind me, what is the size of the deal they brokered with TripAdvisor to sort of scrape or use all of their TripAdvisor content?
Yeah, I don't think they put a number on it, but I think it was substantial. So basically, it's going to shortcut TripAdvisor results when you search on Perplexity. So I assume they're sort of caching, so they're saving all of TripAdvisor content daily or every hour or something, so that those results can surface really quickly. So I assume there's a percentage revenue in there somewhere, but they didn't disclose the amount.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, Google has always existed with this massive index, this huge search, knowledge of all of our websites that it's gathered through its crawlers and indexing over the years. But it brokered a deal with Reddit, for good and bad, like we saw in that pizza example, $60 million to say that they're going to prioritize that sort of Reddit's forums and all the human-generated content, the good, bad, and ugly and funny stuff, to power its search engine. So it's a little bit more human. So it can learn what us humans have put into the machine. So I find that quite interesting. And if anyone remembers the I'm feeling lucky button that Google had, and if you go to the very first or second slide of this presentation, the I'm feeling lucky button was there right on day one of Google. And all that does is, if you search something in Google and you hit that I'm feeling lucky button, it shortcuts you past the results page and straight to the first result. It's kind of the most rudimentary version of AI overviews, where now the AI overviews are not just taking to result number 1. It's going to look at all the top 2 or 3 or 5 pages, I don't know, work out what's true and give you the best summarized answer. So again, fundamentally, things haven't changed. It's just a different layer through which we kind of access the information. All right. So now, if things have changed but not changed, what must stay and what must go? I think that's kind of what a lot of people are thinking coming into this webinar. And again, it sounds like such a fence-sitting answer. Not a lot has to change. We have to do all the same fundamentals, but our focus needs to shift. And I've got one great article, again, that I found sort of in my research by Leda Solis. She's also an SEO of 20 or 25 years, a phenomenal speaker. And she presents really great articles on All Matter SEO and more recently, All Matter AI, or what she calls GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. It's a bit tricky to run through every single one of the things, but she, in her sort of article, but the 3 areas in which she does this comparison of traditional search versus LLM search. The first one is user behavior. And she says, how long are the queries, for instance? In traditional search, 4.2 words. In AI search, 23 words. What topics is it? It's sort of just people are searching for info, navigation, commerce, or transaction. In LLMs, it's far more skewed to sort of queries about when, why, how. It's that kind of stuff. And I ran through all this, but it's definitely worth looking at this article because it kind of shares how users have changed pre and post AI. It shares how We optimize differently for SEO. And I've got another slide coming up that just summarizes it even shorter to kind of get everyone there. But if you look across these answers, mostly it's yes, 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 yes. You kind of have to do the same, but just tweak everything a little bit. So probably most of us on this call are not doing the SEO in our business day to day. Perhaps we're responsible for it. Perhaps we have team members or we work with an agency. So I think it's critical just that at our level here, we all just read through this, understand, and be a little bit more empowered to know when our agency tells us, no, you have to spend a ton of money on like redoing your whole SEO because AI is changing things. Like, just question that. Sometimes we might be getting sold a little bit of snake oil, but keep an open mind, obviously. And then this slide is also pretty cool, where it gives you different goals or metrics to focus on in pure SEO, traditional search versus modern search. Really handy stuff if you want to just reflect on this and change the goals you give your team or your CMO or your whoever it may be. And a sort of simpler view, hopefully this one slide kind of helps most of us on the call. And it's the 8 pillars of SEO that I've always implemented into our business over the years. And the first is just having a good base technical health. The code in your site is clean. The crawlers can find your website. They're able to index everything. That's vital for SEO. Choosing the right keywords is critical. Creating content that uses those keywords and phrases and natural language is critical. Building links to your website has always been critical. It's a fundamental basis or foundation of Larry and Sergey's original algorithm. It was called PageRank. You can only rank if people point to you and vote your content is worth being voted on or linked to. So all these things matter. The UX of your site and how fast the site is matters for traditional SEO. Structured data and schema, EEAT, which I'll touch on in a moment, and brand authority are all critical things to win at SEO. Guess what? All of them are critical to win in AI search too. And the latter 3, I've put 2 tick boxes next to because I think that's where the focus needs to shift towards. For example, links still matter, but AI might, or the argument's out that even if you're not linked to from websites, just the fact that your brand name is mentioned a lot might be more powerful. The fact that our company, Chris or Cape Town Tourism, is now associated with Atta through this webinar when the crawlers sort of crawl this content and probably listen in on this voice recording because all the AI can do all this stuff now, is going to attach a value to the relationship and the connection between Atta, which is a great tourism authority, our small, humble businesses. And that's how the machine works. So we've got to find ways to kind of use traditional PR, the things that Bryony's been doing for years and years, in a technical version of that. And yeah, on that last point, the EEAT is perhaps one of the reasons I brought this in before we move on to some questions, is that about 6 or 7 years ago, Google did a fundamental change to their search algorithm. And for the first time ever, they used AI heavily in grading websites. What they did was they got real people behind computers to follow like a checklist based on how much experience does this website have? How much expertise does it have? How authoritative does it look? How trustworthy does it look to a human? These are like soft sentiment feelings. Is it full of terrible banners and ads and like the font is too small and the site's super slow? Those are all things that humans can determine very easily. In the early days, hard for machines to determine. So they trained the machine on humans opening and assessing thousands and thousands of websites. And they taught the machine how to think and view websites like a human. So this EEAT standard is something that SEOs hold very, very high so that we can match the algorithm's new expectations of good and bad. In the early days of SEO, when I started out, your site could be but ugly. It could be super slow, but if you did the tech stuff right, Google rewarded you and you were on page 1. Nowadays, the shift is almost completely towards brand, useful, meaningful content that's not keyword stuffed, how fast your site is, how awesome it is and easy it is to use. Those are the things that matter in the new age of SEO. And guess what? It's also the stuff that matters in the new age of AI. Wow, that was me going for almost 20 minutes. I hope everyone's still with us and I hope it all makes sense. So I'm going to shift over and I'm going to pose a question, I think, firstly to Chris, if we may, or Blessing, anything you want to sort of bring in before we jump to questions. Sorry, let me run back to you.
No, that's fine. It's totally
okay, cool,
fine.
Cool. All right. Statement that Chris made the other day to me, which I totally agree with, but I wanted to unpack a little bit here, is for over 20 years, we've been making websites primarily for Google. Now we need to start making them for people. Chris, is it something more you want to add to that apart from
Yeah,
what I've waffled on about?
no, it needs a bit of clarification because it's not intuitive, right? Well, first of all, we've all been making websites for Google, undoubtedly, but really we've been making websites for the people searching on Google. That's what we should have been doing all along. The folks that were doing it right, that's what they have been doing. So now there's a lot of talk about you building websites for the AI bots, and that's also true. But the way I like to think about this is what does the human actually want when they search for things to do in Cape Town? That might be a clear one, but what they don't want to do is land on a website and then go to a navigation and then go to a sub channel and then go over here to a blog. They're looking straight for the information. So I think the focus needs to be on that, and what is the customer actually trying to get out of this? And the example I like to use is when you search for a restaurant, right? So I'm visiting Cape Town with my family. And what we're thinking, we're just walking along and we're thinking, I'd love to sit down, have a restaurant, have some local local food, maybe overlooking the beach in a nice outdoor setting in kind of a busy area in Cape Town with some energy. That's what we're thinking, right? We're having these discussions. That becomes the search term. That becomes what we're trying to optimize for. So it's these long tail search terms. And if you think about what the customer's looking for, which is more kind of conversational, whereas back before AI, you'd search Cape Town restaurants and you'd land on Google and you're going to go through a list. But now you can think how a human thinks. And that's how I think we should be thinking about content, delivering the answer to the humans that are searching for these quite differentiated terms, right? We have got very specific thoughts when we're searching for anything to do with travel.
Chris, that's so cool. You made me realize like where we've been until now has been almost caveman days. Me, man, search on keyboard with 3 words only. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, just tell the machine exactly what you want. And hopefully like a website like Cape Town Tourism has got great content that talks about places to go, eat local cuisine, by the beach. And if it doesn't have that content, Brownie, like then you're not going to come up and the AI is not going to be able to satisfy the query. But if some other website does that specializes in restaurants, I don't know, dining out or eat out or whatever, cool. Let them be the answer to that question, right?
Absolutely. I think you made a very valid point earlier on when you also spoke about traditional PR and what we do from a Cape Town tourism perspective, and what we've done quite successfully over the years is integrated our approach in terms of trying to feed information to our target audiences. And like you said about, putting prompts into Google where people want to go to a nice restaurant with a good ambience. If we build a successful brand as Cape Town Tourism, they directly go to our social media channels. And they're looking at the content and consuming the content on Instagram or TikTok or whichever channel they are familiar with. And from there, we push them through to our website. And we have done that quite successfully. We obviously learn things along the way. And we adapt as we go along, depending on who it is that we're talking to and what kind of information we want to feed our audiences. But it is about doing consistent research in terms of what our audiences are after, and what message we want our audiences to consume, what content we want them to consume, and what we want them to do with that content when they consuming that content on our relevant digital platforms.
Cool. All right, let's hop on. Let's see what else we have here. And by the way, some of these questions are ones that sort of we as panelists sort of seeded before. And I think there's 7 or 8 that came from the floor or registrants before this webinar even started. So please keep the questions coming if there's more that jump to mind, and we'll try to get to them. All right, here's one that I'm very, I would say, guilty of, but it's typical SEO speak. And that's, my background is, SEOs are obsessed with link building because it was the way you used to get to the top of Google. Traditional marketers focus on brand building. What do we do in the age of AI? Do we still spend all that money and effort and time on links, or just focus on brand story? Chris, I'd be curious to know your answer, because it's kind of, it's both a tech and a brand thing.
Yeah, definitely. So let me sort of split between sort of the social, because I think social is here to stay whether that ends up being TikTok or
Yeah.
Instagram or the next thing or it doesn't matter. Humans love to spend hours scrolling through videos, whether that's a good thing or not. That's what they like to do. That's a different debate. So I think that's here to stay. And absolutely what Bernie just said, you need to be on those channels because they're going to be there, and that's where users are spending time. So you need to focus on the brand there. For the search bit, though, I'm going to answer it. So two things, and it's an important distinction, right, with these large language models, with these AIs. So when they train on the world's knowledge, the internet, basically. They train on 10 trillion-ish words. So they've taken all the digital content in the world, and that's what they've learned. Then they stop training, and then they become ChatGPT, and we can question them. So during that training, they look at pieces of content differently. A good example is Wikipedia. They give a much higher credibility rating to Wikipedia because it's generally really good content. They give a much lower score to anything they might find on Facebook or Twitter because it's a lot of junk. So that's important. So the more they see your brand in that pre-training associated with tours in Cape Town, the more likely to associate you with that brand. Second part, when you're searching, so now you're searching the internet on Google or on ChatGPT search, and you're using the brain of the AI to search the internet. And that's where brand matters and actually links matter, because link affects your Google ranking or your Bing ranking, which is important now. And therefore, that's going to affect what comes up in the search results. It's unlikely, and it's not clear, but it's unlikely that a ChatGPT search or a Gemini search is going to search 1 million websites. I always like to think of what would I do if I was the AI. I would go to Google and I would take their top 100 results and I'd summarize those and return. I assume Google's done the hard work with the link building, which is fantastic, and the page rank, and then return on that. So having it's long answer short is everything you should have been doing before to do with brand is equally important going forwards. I'd probably say more so because AI can cut straight to the chase. If you're looking for a tour in Cape Town, it's going to go straight into finding 3 rather than searching pages and pages of hundreds. And you need your brand to be memorable within those 3. So I think it's more important now than ever.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. I think you're completely right. I think you can't do one without the other. And from our experience is that people are going to AI tools and they can build an itinerary. I mean, you can type a prompt into ChatGPT and you can come up with an amazing itinerary of what to do in Cape Town over the 5 days or 10 days that you're going to be here. What we are finding is that our audiences want to engage with user-generated content. So we are finding that we are using locals and we're using authentic stories from locals and people that are visiting the destination to tell their story about their experience while they've been here and while they've been taking advantage of the tourism propositions and everything that there is to do here. And I think that there needs to be a good balance between the two, because people want to hear stories and authentic stories from people who are in the destination. And then they are also going to go to these AI tools and see exactly what it is that they need to put on their list of things to do while they're here. So there needs to be a good balance between the two. I mean, Cape Town is known as a destination that's got heart, and we can't remove that from anything that we do from a marketing perspective as a destination. We can't remove the heart and soul of what we are as a destination, because that's how we compete with other destinations. There are mountains and there are beaches all over the world, and we're competing with destinations all over the world who are all globally leading. But those unique factors are what draws people to the destination, and those are the stories that people tell. And those are the stories that have heart, that people fall in love with, and that's why they choose to come to destinations like Cape Town.
Super. Yeah, it's a total blend. You've got to keep doing the old stuff and just build that brand, build that consumer link.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Let's see what else we have here. Kind of touched on this, I think, earlier, but Google's AI overview is a huge driver of zero-click search. That's an aspect where you just don't have to leave Google. You're getting all your answers in ChatGPT. You never go to anyone's actual website. Why are we still building it? Is this good, bad, or ugly for DMOs or travel orgs in general? And I guess how do you how do you work around it if it is bad or whatever? What are your thoughts, Brownie? Have you considered this, or your digital your colleagues? Have they seen the traffic drop because of AI? I'd be curious.
So, as I said earlier on, we do a lot of research in terms of how people are consuming our content and, what they're doing on our digital platforms. As soon as we see a drop in traffic on our website, we change things up a little bit. A couple of months ago, probably about probably about a year ago, we started exploring a partnership with a VR company, and we added some VR content onto our website. That didn't work. It slowed down the speed of the website. People were spending a lot of time trying to load the VR, which wasn't loading quickly enough, and then they were moving off and going somewhere else. We took the VR functionality off our website, and in the last quarter, we look at our results from sort of 3 months at a time. So January, February, and March, we've actually increased the number of unique users on our website, and we are seeing probably, I think it was over 300,000 unique users on our website between January, February, and March, which is a big number. And yes, we will think that our website traffic drops, and it probably has dropped over the last couple of years, but we are seeing increases depending on what we do. And the campaigns that we run, we run very successful campaigns on our digital and social media channels that push people to our website. And we're seeing that the content that people are engaging with on our website are guides, the top 5 things to do, the top 10 restaurants to visit, the 50 things to do under 50 Rand. People are engaging with that sort of content. So we are overloading our website with that sort of content because that's what our users are wanting to engage with. But we try and test different things. Some are successful, some aren't. And we keep playing around with it because I think that's the world that we live in, is that, a solution that worked a year or 2 years ago doesn't work now. And you have to keep adapting your approach to talk to your audience, to meet the objectives of what you want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd go to I think having that content on the website it's still critical, and it probably always will. And I just did a video on this, but I think websites are going away because it's difficult, right? Because we've had websites for 30 years now, and it just seems intuitive that I go to a website. That just seems like a normal thing to do because we're all Googleized, right? We're all living in that world. But I never wanted to go to a website. I just wanted the answer. I don't want to go to the ESPN.com. I just want to know the football result from last night with a nice summary and who scored, and that's what I want to know. So the websites were a means to an end. The website was created as a storage of that information so that I can go there and find the answer. Whereas now the AI can find the answer. So I think ChatGPT and Google Gemini, or just Google, it's unclear which, become our new interface to everything. And instead of doing a search on, let's just say, ChatGPT for hotels in London, I'll in it bouncing off to booking.com, I'll do a search within ChatGPT, and it's just going to return results within ChatGPT. It's going to look exactly like booking.com, but those results are actually going to be some from Booking and some from Expedia and some from some other, maybe some direct. And I'll link within ChatGPT, and I'll do a finer search and a more granular search. There'll be a book now button right in there, and I'll never actually go off to the website because I didn't ever want to go to that website. That was not the intention. And I think that's the same for everything, because these AIs now can spin up what looks like a website within a second. So I'm searching what looks like booking.com hotel listings. Now I'm jumping off and I want to find out about the big 5 on a Safari. Boom, I've got now a table of the big 5 and where to see them. Next thing I want to know is what a lion eats for breakfast. Now I've got a blog post on what all this stuff's just going to spin up in real time. And traditionally, where the source of those information was actually doesn't matter. I've got what I wanted, and I'm sorry, but I didn't visit your website. And that's scary for everyone because we've built our lives, maybe not our lives, but we've built our business lives around people coming to our website. So when potentially that's not happening, that's pretty frightening.
I'm going to throw something interesting into that point, and it is a frightening concept. So thank you for being brazen to show that. There was a question from Denise Yazar here earlier saying, how does AI search change Google Ads? Now, I'm not particularly asking you to answer that question directly or indirectly, but in the context of what you've just described, where this new layer, GPT or the AI layer, which is grabbing off of websites, rendering the layer, where do these engines make their money? The results at the moment don't seem to be monetized. They don't seem to be ad driven. That hotel listing, that's a mash of Expedia, Booking.com and whatever. How do those stay sort of journalist integrity, or when do they become commoditized, monetized? And then there goes the honesty in them. The one who pays the most gets to the top of the GPT. That could turn them. In fact, that's what happened to Google. There's amazing, really in-depth articles recently of how even the top personnel at Google's ad division of their business drove ad revenue so hard to hit their targets, they're killing the search engine's quality. Is the same not just going to repeat itself here in AI land, but probably at 3 times the pace? What do you think, Chris?
You have to trust the AI, Andre. Have you not watched Black Mirror? You always trust the AI. That's what we need to learn from this. I believe you can trust the AI, which is going to sound weird for this part. But I think that the goal of an open AI, which is ChatGPT, or of a Google Gemini, I think that the potential value in cracking this market is probably 10 times bigger than the valuation of Google today. And I think as soon as they get caught sprinkling in some influence with paid media, like Google, they sprinkle them in, but they're very clear about what's promotional and what's not. I don't think they'll cross that line. I don't think Google ever crossed that line. I don't think the AI will. I think there's so much more to gain. And it sounds silly, but I think OpenAI could potentially be worth let's say $10 trillion. Who knows the number? And for them to risk that for the sake of making a few tens of billions, yes, that sounds silly. I don't think they will. So I think the AI results will be honest. And I think they'll find a place. It's quite easy to make a nice column on the side or a thing across the top that says promotional. And those are valuable for the people. Still click on those, even though they know they're promotional. I'm sure Google will do that. There's a new AI view now, which you could test out on Google, and it's the chat on the main page, and it's Google ads on the right. Actually, it's not ads; they're just links, but there will be ads. So I think we'll end up with the same sort of balance of ads and content, and maybe if Google have pushed that too much recently, but they've got bills to pay, so.
Shareholders I don't have bills to pay. Shareholders,
stuff like that, anyway, yeah.
We won't go there. Let's pop onto one more question. There's a very interesting one in the Q&A also. What role does video play in the AI search era? Brownie, you mentioned VR a second ago. I'm sure Cape Town Tourism and a lot of the brands that are part of the Cape Town community invest a lot of money in video, whether it's professional stuff or like selfies on Instagram. How do you think that's going to shift as we go more into AI?
Well, I think the way that it has shifted is that we're focusing a little bit of our energies on short form films. So, people that are using these AI tools, they, want to see a destination in 15 seconds or 30 seconds max. And we've had to adapt our approach to grab an audience for 15 seconds or, 20 seconds max. I do think, though, that I'm a traditional PR marketing person, and yes, we've adapted our approach in the way that we need to. But I do think for a destination like ours, and I'm just talking about our destination because that's the product that I promote, but I think that there is still value in creating longer videos that has heart and has soul. And I think that the way people are consuming videos is different. Yes, they are going onto TikTok. I mean, we launched our TikTok account coming out of COVID because we were then focusing on a millennial audience who was spending a lot of their time on TikTok, and reluctantly we started our TikTok channel, and our TikTok channel is the best performing social media channel that we have at the moment. So we've had to adapt our approach, but I do think that there is still a space for a long form video. But videos are important, and I think that people consume their content by watching videos. People are doing more than one thing at a time. To spend time reading, and watching. They are putting in headphones, and while they're in a meeting, or I mean, that's how our sort of younger generation do it in our office. They are listening to podcasts and watching videos while they're in meetings or on webinars, or that's how people are consuming content. And it's crazy to think that people are consuming content that way, but videos is the way of the future. People want to see, and they want to use their eyes and see, and be immersed in a destination like Cape Town by watching videos and listening to what people have to say about a destination. So videos is very important for us. And we spend a lot of energy. We've got a content studio with one person who generates videos. That's what he does. And yeah, it's been a successful strategy for us.
Cool. Chris, do you have any opinions on video in the future?
Yeah, I agree with that. I wrote an article maybe 6 months ago just on what I think the future of sort of discovery is, trying to tie it into, I think, how our brains work. And I came down to three things. One is I just want the answer. I don't care who comes up with the answer. I just want the football result from last night. And it doesn't matter who comes up with it. It's not an opinion, it's the result. Okay, we can talk about opinions on football results, but you know what I mean? I just want the answer. And the number two is I actually want the answer, but I care who spoke about it. So I care which brand. So I want to know about safaris in Kenya. And I actually want to know about David Attenborough, what he says about this place versus that place, because I think he is an important brand when it comes to nature. So I want to know what he says, and then what these other four people say. That's important because I trust them. And then the last one, I think, is just go straight to video. And my brain and our brains are trained to look at other humans, and we love visual, which obviously video is visual and audio, and we're trained for that. And that's why we can't get off TikTok. So I think there'll be some transfer between the two, but we're not going to stop watching video. YouTube's going to be there for a long time. I don't see any reason it would go away. And there'll be some transfer between the AI and that, but the AI looks at a video, and most likely they just take it and they create a transcript from it. They just look for what information was in the video, and that's how they would train on it. So you can also get video results within ChatGPT now in some searches. This just started last week. So again, long story short, it's really important, and it's going to be that, I think, for the long term.
It's something I read about a while ago, you made me think about, is that let's say we're doing content marketing, blog posts, top 10 article, top 10 coffee shop, whatever, something like you mentioned, Brownie, earlier. And it's very easy to say to a GPT, like, summarize that for me, give me the salient points, I'm going to make a decision. But if you've done the video of 10 great coffee shops to go to in Cape Town for XYZ, you can't necessarily ask the video to summarize it and you get the same. I mean, it can do the transcript and give you the words, but when you want video, you can't super summarize video that easily. I mean, I'm sure AIs can do it, but the chances are, if you do create great quality, and I mean quality in terms of meeting the user's need, not fill the screen stuff, you're more likely to get a user to go through the whole video, then you're not going to get cut out by the AI summary. So if you great video and you get the message across, that customer, when they do come to your website or reach out to you, you've sold them on the concept, you sold them on you don't have to even sell to them. They're going to buy from you. They're going to book with you because you've won them over without you even being in there. It's the virtual version of you that sold your brand or your destination or what it may be. So there's tremendous value in the, obviously more expensive to create video than just write a blog post, but it might be worth the higher return and the higher engagement rate. All right.
Yeah, Lauren just wrote that Instagram has brought in an Explore tab, so you could search Reels within Reels or within Instagram. You could search. So if I was Instagram, what I would do is I would take the video, and I assume this is what they're doing. They could do two things. They could take the transcript from the video. So having voiceovers is good because the AI can then just grab that, voice to text, save the text, use that for an AI summary to find it. The second thing they can do is they can look at the images. So if you're showing Table Mountain and then this other thing, they can, if they want, use that. I think they probably don't right now because it's quite difficult for it to know if this is Victoria Falls versus the next falls. But those are two things they do. So both point to the increasing necessity of good video.
Yeah, and so that enables the indexation and findability of video tenfold. Yeah, exactly. Here's something quite pragmatic. Give us. Someone asked. In fact, this was a question from one of the audience. Was 3 recommendations how to be found better in AI search, whether it's AI overviews, ChatGPT, search function, or Perplexity. I'm going to hand this one over to you, Chris. You seem to spend a lot more time here than I do. Either some like quick hacks that are working now, or some fundamentals like I spoke about.
Yeah, too much. I spent too much time thinking about this. But so, like I said earlier, websites are going away. I don't mean they're going to go away next month. Websites eventually might go away, but doesn't mean you shouldn't focus on your website. You need all that content on your website. That's your single source of truth for your company or your organization. That's what the AI is going to train on. It's what it's going to search for the answers that it's going to put in this ChatGPT box. So even if they never go to your website, it needs that content in order for you to surface. So like I said earlier, I always think, what would I think if I was an LLM, if I was an AI? So if I'm an AI today reading your website, am I just going to see a bunch of blog posts that are just kind of generic and things to do in and top 10 restaurants? Am I, as an AI, going to learn anything from your website? I hate to say it, but 95% chances I'm not. I already know the answer. I've read everything. I know everything. And you didn't teach me anything new. So in the future, I might bypass that. I'll go to the website who does teach me something new. So one just sort of quick thing everyone should be doing now. And one way to structure this is FAQs. So in the past, we might make FAQs. I'm a safari company, right, operating in Kenya. And I've got 10 FAQs. And they were the most frequently asked questions. But I've written them for humans because humans can't read more than 10. 10's probably a lot. But now I'm not writing them for humans, I'm writing them for the AI. So instead of having 10 FAQs, I should have 200. And the number 200 is actually not frequently asked. It's the question that gets asked once a month or once a year. But actually it's been asked in a different way by lots of people all day long. So now I just find it's more places for me to surface. And that 200th FAQ is actually very specific. It's when I get to this part of this park and I'm trying to find the lions and where do they hang out near the watering hole, and this very specific stuff does get asked. And now your website becomes an expert in those long tail questions. So the more generic you keep it, the less likely they are to find you. So I'd say keep your website really up to date, keep the long tail information up there, make sure your opening hours and your socials are all connected, so it's a really clear source of truth for when the AI comes looking, because the AI is looking. The AI sees all, if you like. It's searching your website, it's spidering, it's doing everything, and it looks to see who you are, why you are, how many socials you've got, how important you are, and why I should surface your website above these other 10 million, which I can in 0.4 seconds. So I always say single source of truth. Make sure all your information is on your website and searchable and findable. That's
cool. I mean, we've always had FAQs, but frequently asked questions. I think we're going to start writing infrequently asked questions.
Yeah.
That's and a hell of a lot of them. So good one. Voice search that came up a little bit earlier. Any ideas to help tourism businesses be found in voice search? I mean, I'll share my opinion. It's not based on much, but again, voice search is just another interface. It's another version. You need to have the source of truth sound, holistic, broad, frequently and infrequently asked questions. Perhaps the only extra new thing that maybe wasn't there, I don't know, 5 years ago, pre-voice, is how people speak more naturally to a machine than they do when they type like a caveman into a keyboard. So be free with your language, write like you speak, don't be over formal. I think we all can be guilty of that. Perhaps you worry that the person that lands on your corporate, or not your corporate, but like, your official landing page about who you are, it needs to be in a certain tone. Maybe in those places you do, but you need to find other ways to represent it in all versions of yourself.
Yeah, I just say so. So technically, there is no voice search, right? It's the whatever platform you're on is just converting voice to text, and
Yeah.
it's doing a search with those words. So there's no difference as far as what you do, other than voice is likely to be the 20 keywords rather than two. So what we said earlier about those long tail, but there is no voice search. Technically, it just all converts to text, and then it converts back to voice when it returns the result to you. But in the background, it's
Cool.
just text back and forth.
I've got an interesting question here that I've just spotted in the Q&A from Angus Begg. I think I've met you once, Angus. Cape Town tourism audience is mass market, fairly broadly speaking, I think. Andre, how does your audience relate to AI? And Chris, how does your sort of high-end, how does your bus, your activity and your red bus type tourists compare to high-end tourists' use of AI? I don't know if there is any research done. Maybe Chris, you've done, like, are millennials using it more than Gen Zs versus baby boomers? Is that, I think that's the sense of the question, who is using AI more or less? And perhaps, are they using it differently or for different reasons? Do you have any comments there?
Yeah, it's pretty spotty, and it's spotty with the rollout as well, right? Some countries don't have the latest tools, and it rolls out very unevenly. I'm privileged to live in the US where we get everything as it comes out, but I know it's not equally. And there's early adopters and there's late adopters. I definitely the younger people are using it more heavily. It's changed, so that I think that's always going to be the case. With high end versus economy, I think it's difficult to say. I don't think there's been enough research on that.
Cool. And I've just reread Angus's question. The last sentence is interesting. It's actually, does AI distinguish between high-end and bus tourists?
The
I wonder
AI
if the
knows
machine learns who we are. Does it?
Yeah. Well, it knows it knows everything, right? It saves your, whether you know it or not, it's saving your memory. So it's you can find it, you can go to it in ChatGPT, but there's a file in there which is your memory,
You
and
know what? I'll share it.
Yeah.
I think I've even got a good use case for this. So I think most of us use Uber quite a lot. I've become very lazy and privileged, and I start using Uber Blacks more and more. But my nephews and nieces, who are young or older teens, they use Uber, but they go for the cheapest ride possible because it comes out of their pocket money. I've noticed that if I and they order the exact same Uber from the same location at the same day, we get offered different pricing. Mine gets loaded and theirs gets discounted. And I think the machine is watching our behaviors. Uber
Yeah.
is profiteering more of my laziness or my whatever, comfort seeking. And I'm sure if Uber's doing it, the AI is doing it too.
Yeah, I just heard that last week as well with the Uber. But you would think so. If I'm a billionaire and I would never dream of taking Uber because I only take helicopters, then you'd think you'd hope that my ChatGPT, if I want it to be personalized, it would learn who I am, and it would, don't talk about Ubers. I never heard of Uber. I've got a private jet, and that's all I'm gonna. So it should learn from that and return results that are relevant to me. I don't have a private jet or helicopter. I'm just making up examples. But
It sounds like the conversation is heading towards one of the last questions we got today was, it's the philosophy of AI. Should we be using it? Is Big Brother watching? All of these things. And I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole too fast, but I just wanted to skip through to this point that it's not all just tech. It's actually also how we as humans, I guess, see the future using these new tools, or how the new tools end up influencing us in reverse. Yeah, it's just a comment or a reflection, I suppose.
Yeah, I just say, I mean, it's not going to stop, right? So this is, whether we like it or not, and I've definitely got mixed thoughts about it. It's not going to stop. It's going to have a huge effect on our lives, on jobs. Lots of good things are going to happen, lots of bad things are going to happen, and it's definitely scary. But I think the more we can all learn about it, especially in our business lives, we have to. In your personal life, it's a choice, but in your business and profession, you have to be using these tools because your competitors are, and the landscape is moving, and your customers are using it, so you have no choice. Yeah, there's lots of other questions about being reliant on it. I was in conference last week in Valencia, and the whole country lost power for many hours. I know in South Africa you're used to that, but it was people get freaked out. They're not used to that, and you suddenly start wondering, what if it doesn't come back on? Different question.
Yeah, because I think you brought us a great point there at the end of, in our personal lives, we can choose to involve or be involved or not, but in business, we need to. And I guess that's one of the key points of today's chat too. So maybe with that blessing, I'm happy to hand over back to you.
Great, amazing. Thank you all so much for that beautiful session and presentation. That was really, really packed. I think our time is really fast spent now, so I'm just going to say thank you to all our attendees today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and you're leaving with some useful knowledge from this webinar. Like we mentioned earlier, a copy of the recording will be shared with you. So if you need to catch up on anything, or you just need to refresh your memory on anything you've heard here today, you can always go back to the recording. And also I'll be adding the contact details of our panelists today, just in case you need to follow up with them on anything at all. And I think just a quick personal note from me, this would actually be my last webinar with ATA, as I'll be moving on from ATA after now. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you that I've connected with on here over the last year. It's been a very, very great journey and moment. Thank you all so much, very much. And we'll see you again next time, hopefully with someone else. All right.
Thanks, Blessing.
Thank you, guys. Best of luck moving forward, Blessing.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, guys.